going to work on a very nice problem today. Suppose you have an equilateral triangle, a circle, and a square. And they all have the same area. The question is, what can we say about the perimeter? Which is the smallest, which is the largest, which is middle? Okay, so let's look at this. Since this is an equilateral triangle, all three sides are L, and the perimeter is obviously 3L. Now, let's look at this for a moment. Since it's equilateral, we know that this is 60 degrees, this is L. If I drop a drop a right angle, this is going to be L over 2. Now I know that the area is 1/2 times the base. I'm going to call this the base times the height. So we don't know the height yet. But we do know that this is the left triangle is a special right triangle. This is H, this is L over 2, and L. But let's not write those just yet. However, let's denote that yes, it's a right triangle, and that this is 60 degrees. So the sides are going to be in the ratio of 1 to square root of 3. Now, what do you do to 1 to get L over 2? The answer is you multiply by L over 2, which means we multiply all three sides by L over 2. This will be L, just like we want. This would be L over 2, just like we want. And this will be H, just like we need. The H is the square root of 3 times L over 2. So A is going to be in the bottom, 2 times 2. Well, let's do the top first. You have 1 times square root of 3 is square root of 3. You have L times L is L squared over 2 squared. I prefer to write it as square root of 3 times L over 2 all squared. So this common area is square root of 3 times L over 2 quantity squared. Okay, so now let's find the perimeter of the circle, better known as the circumference. What does C equal? Well, we know that the area pi r squared is the square root of 3, which I'm going to write this way this time, 3 to the half. The square root of 3 times L over 2. And I divide by pi. Then I take the square root. That is, I raise both sides to the 1/2 power. And I do have one silly typo. Before I divided by pi, what's in the blue is the area, which was L over 2 squared. Okay, I raised both sides to the 1/2. The left side I just get R. The right side, 3 to the half, raised to the half is 3 to the quarter. I get the square root of pi times L over 2 squared, square root is just L over 2. So that is R. Now, the circumference is 2 pi times R. But R is 3 to the 1/4 over the square root of pi times L over 2. First, the 2's cancel. And pi divided by square root of pi is square root of pi. So the circumference is the square root of pi times 3 to the 1/4 times L. Okay? It is what it is. Pi, 3 to the 1/4 times L. Now, the square, well, this is side by side. S times S. So the area, S squared, is equal to, the square, is equal to this mess, which is the square root of 3 times L over 2 squared. Take the square root of both sides. You don't have to worry about plus or minus because S is the length of a side of a square. It's going to be positive. Just like with the area, we know the circumference is positive. So the square root of this is 3 to the 1/4 times the square root of this is just L over 2. But the perimeter is 4 times S. And here's S. Not write it as 3 and 1/4. 3 raised to the quarter L over 2. The big thing is the 2 is going to go into the 4 2 times. So you can get 2 times 3 to the 1/4 L. The perimeter is going to be 2 times 3 to the 1/4 times L. Now, if you look at all the perimeters, they're all a multiple of L. Okay, they're all times L, So basically, the question is, which is bigger? Is 3 bigger than the square root of pi, 3 to the 1/4, or is 2 times 3 to the 1/4 bigger? Whichever one of those 3 in blue is bigger, then when you multiply it by L, it'll multiply all of them by L. The one that's, the one in blue, the largest one, will be the largest one, even if you multiply by L. So, I guess the obvious ones to look at first are these two. You have the square root of pi times 3 to the 1/4 versus 2 times 3 to the 1/4. Well, they both have 3 to the 1/4. Which one's going to be bigger? Well, it comes down to, is square root of pi bigger than square root of 2, or is square root of 2 bigger than pi? Well, one way of doing it is to just realize that 2 is the square root of 4. So which of these are bigger? Well, they're all being multiplied by 3 to the 1/4, and since 4 is bigger than pi, the square root of 4 is bigger than the square root of pi. So we know that this is bigger. We know that the square is bigger than the circle. So now the question is, where does the triangle come in? It is the does the triangle bigger than all of them? Is the triangle between S and C? Are all of them bigger than the triangle? Well, let's see. Right now, the biggest one is this. Let's compare that with 3. 3 versus 2 times 3 to the 1/4 versus. Let's square both sides. If this is bigger than this, when you square it, it'll still be bigger. When I square the left side, I get 9. When I square the right side, 2 squared is 4, 3 to the half, 3 to the quarter, squared. Well, a quarter times 2 is a half. This is square root of 3. Now, to have equality, this has to be 2 1/2. 4 times 2 1/2 is 9. If this is bigger than 2 1/2, if the square root of 3 is bigger than 2 1/2, then the right side is the winner. If the square root of 3 is less than 2 1/2, then the left side is the winner. Well, the square root of 3 is less than the square root of 4, which is 2. That is, this is less than 4 times 2, or 8. And this is a constant 9. The left side is bigger. Okay, the triangle, the equilateral triangle, has the largest perimeter. If the triangle, the circle, and the square, they have the same area, the triangle has the largest perimeter, the square has the second largest perimeter, and the circle has the smallest perimeter of all of them. Okay, this is a great problem in my opinion. If you like problems like this, please subscribe to my channel, tell your friends about it, and please leave comments below. And if you like these type problems, come back and view some more. Thank you.